Hey, everybody. Happy Thursday. If you are on here, please get those likes up, tag anybody on this discussion, or share it with somebody who you think may find it interesting. Special shout out to Hakeem for the 15 on the super chat. I appreciate the love and I appreciate the support. I'm excited about today's conversation. I'm going to have a lovely, lovely special guest with me today, and we are going to be discussing can women level up without marriage? Is that possible? So I think we're going to have a fun discussion. Hopefully, you guys will learn something more, at the very least, be entertained. So, without further ado, I'm going to bring her on and we're going to hop right into it. Hey,
How are you?
good. How are you?
I'm good. That intro music was so nice, calming. We're all in a nice space. Like I feel like we're all like, very zen after this.
Perfect. That's
Love
exactly what I was going for.
it.
Relax, chill. You know what I mean? Non-confrontational. That's the vibe. So
Life is so busy that with music like that and like with that kind of energy is just so necessary, it just you can gather your thoughts better.
it's funny. I tend to go for more unless I'm like dancing or something. Like I really like chill, relaxing music because like my default is to just be run around everywhere, just thoughts. So like I'm always looking for something calming. So
Love it.
yes. Well, thank you so much for being here. I know you joined me a few months ago with a panel, but this will be our first one-on-one. So I'm really excited about it.
Me too. Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, and you guys, if you have not checked her channel out, please do. The information to her is in the description box. But before we get right into the conversation, would you like to, introduce yourself, your channel, what it is you talk about, all that fun stuff?
Well, it's your Rivah, Rivah TV. Again, glad to be here. Always glad to be invited to share my perspective on various topics. And on my channel, that's what I do. I share my perspective on various talking points, especially when it comes to relationships. Just trying to create that positive environment between both entities, the male and the female balance, and speaking in accordance of the things that I see that we're far off on that we can elevate on and in hopes to get people to understand each other, to have more grace with each other, and of course better relationships, not just relationships of two people being together, but actual long standing relationships, hopefully.
Yeah. Just so okay. So yeah, just functional. That makes sense. Just having a platform to really discuss what's going on and
Right.
in hopes of having these real candid conversations that people actually need to hear. So again, I do appreciate you being here and hanging out with me today, this late afternoon, early evening for some of us. So this will be fun. Well, so the topic today, can women level up without marriage? I wanted to dig a little bit deeper into this because I'm sure you're very familiar with the term level up, boss up, all that kind of different stuff. And, for me, I guess it's always been unclear what that actually means. And so, my first question for you would be, what does it actually mean to level up? How would you define that, or how would you describe that?
So that's well, thank you for asking. Oh well, first off, we know that song Sierra, level up, level up, level up, Um,
Fair, yeah.
you know, um what I would say, the first thing that comes to mind when I hear of the term level up is finances. Okay,
Okay.
that's it. Getting to the bag, leveling up as in excelling, in whatever way necessary that you deem, especially when it comes to, like I said, finances. Um, I don't know, maybe your home space, which is still attached to the money. Um,
Right.
when I see the term level up, I just see it kind of like as a boss up. But in my opinion, leveling up is so much deeper than that. It's way more than finances. Finances can come and they pay bills, they make you live a more comfortable lifestyle. They don't add so much to the stress of life when you're more financially stable. But spiritually, you can level up. Emotionally, you can level up. And I just don't think that those are the aspects that are really, considered when people are talking about the term itself, level up. Level up is more like being a boss chick.
Okay. So you're saying as far as how it's actually been conventionally used, it's generally leveling up financially, specifically, maybe leveling up in your career. We see that term oftentimes. I see women talking about that primarily. Not to say it doesn't happen in male spaces, but I just can't think of a time where I've seen it. It's mostly women being like, level up, boss up, whatever, boss babe, all that kind of different stuff.
Right.
But in your opinion, there's level up should really be more of an all-inclusive term to encompass a lot of different things, all the different areas that actually make up being a woman.
Right.
So, right. No, that makes sense. If you're on here, please get those likes up. Tag anybody on this discussion who you think may find it interesting, or share it. I'm having a great discussion with Rivah TV, and we are talking about, can women level up without marriage? So on to the next question. Do light-skinned women find it easier to level up because of colorism?
You went there.
Just go right to it. Let's just get right to it.
Okay, so if you don't know Rivah, now you know Rivah. Okay. One thing that you're gonna know about Rivah is that I am always going to be as candid, transparent, and honest as possible. And I'm light-skinned, but I'm gonna answer this question honestly. Yes, I do think that does play a large aspect, and I think it's stuff that people try to mull over and like, oh no, and I feel like you mostly hear like light-skinned women say that, like you mostly hear light-skinned women say, oh no, that's not even true, because, and they'll try to think of like one example that they can make, but it's different. I mean, and it goes all the way back to, when they were quote unquote first free, you know what I'm saying? And I love that we're talking about this. It's Black History Month, perfect time.
Right. Absolutely.
And it's, a lot of the women back then that were quote unquote white passing, they had different opportunities, and it still translates all the way till now. Some people judge you by the grade of hair that you have. Some people judge you by how your skin pigment and how light you are. Some people will admire you because you look more mixed, not because you're actually a Black woman, and again, they have you around because maybe you're like, oh look, no, I can't possibly, not like other people because I have a Black friend and it's like this one light,
yeah,
your daddy white, right? So, but do I think that does play a part? Absolutely. I genuinely do think that it plays a part. Not all the time, but I think that it's true.
Okay. So you would say, as a light-skinned woman, or someone who would be classified as light-skinned, that you do believe that you can find it easier to level up in certain instances because of your skin shade. And so when you hear brown skin or dark skin woman, I just heard now, I guess there's this thing called brown skin privilege. So there's light skin privilege, now there's a brown skin evidently, and then there's the dark skin, which based upon this colorism, pretty privilege ideology, dark skin is the most oppressed. So you would say that you do believe that light-skinned women have it easier when it comes to leveling up.
So many different aspects. And I can say that so boldly because, I'm Caribbean, right?
Okay.
And the thing is that when it comes to the whole colorist, it's everywhere. You have people that have that mindset, white is right, and you know what I'm saying? And like, if your hair is a certain grade, and
okay.
Do I think it should be that way? Absolutely not. But do I see when I can hear, like, because I, like, for me, I'm just going to be honest. Like, my grandmother is a dark skinned woman, and I find beauty in darker skin, not like I'm biased, but I'm just saying I find beauty in darker skin, and when I hear darker skinned women speak about certain things, I'm just not going to turn a blind eye and act like it's not true, and that they're not experiencing this. And I can see it, like, we can definitely see where, again, I've had people tell me like, oh, well, you're really pretty, you're Black, right? Oh my gosh, you're really pretty. Are you mixed? They have to associate it with being something else because that's the only way they can find beauty.
Other than just being a Black, right?
Me in this world where I get the compliments that are kind of backhanded, I can imagine what my sisters who are darker skinned will go through. So I have to acknowledge that it's truth. I have to acknowledge that it is true.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely. Hand clap to you. I know that is, that's always such a tense topic. It's interesting because I recently posted this video, I think in response to the false promise of Black love. And in there, one of the things that I address is this idea of colorism and whether or not light-skinned women have, basically are married more if they find it easier in their relationships. And what I found in that study, which is often cited, is that lighter skinned women under the age of 30 might find it easier to, at the very least, have marriage proposals. So again, this is younger light-skinned women, but past the age of 30, when it comes to, opportunities in marriage and engagement, the colorism doesn't really play a factor. And then it also showed that after the age of 30, just in general, it showed that if a light-skinned woman grew up with like in a single parent household or in a working class environment where she was disadvantaged socioeconomically, that also worked against her. And then it also showed that past a certain age, darker skinned Black women were actually had a higher rate of marriage. And that was primarily because there's just more darker skinned women around here. But it was interesting to look at that study and see how colorism certainly does play a role, but it's not, sometimes I wonder at what point is now colorism becoming an excuse? It certainly does happen. And I think there needs to be space to acknowledge it and talk about it. And also sometimes I feel like people can start to use that to maybe cover up other instances. So it's like, it's always interesting to look at that report and to see how at the end of the day, what I took away seeing that study was that darker skinned women, Black women in general, if you want to be married and you're marriage minded, it can happen. Yes, colorism certainly does play a role, especially when you're younger, but it is not the only component that to consider. And like I said, especially as you get older and as people start to change and shift, then that barrier becomes less of a barrier if you're looking to marry Black men specifically.
You're 100% right. I mean, and especially because there's a lot of people who, like, we know what's true, right? Because we're not blind to colorism. We're well aware of what's really going on and how people, perceive other people. But I like that aspect that you said, because that's a very valid point. Some people will use that as a disguise. Oh, they didn't hire me because, this, or they didn't like me because of that. And it's like, you're mean.
Yeah, no, it's your attitude. It has nothing to do with the color of skin. You just have a bad attitude. Right. And then there was another point in there. What was interesting was that because I've heard that there's certain darker skinned divestors that kind of use this study to kind of paint the idea that hey, this is why you should divest, because Black men aren't dating you. But the interesting thing about it is if you look in the study, it was lighter skinned women, and there are mixed women who were more likely to date out, or basically white women were more likely to date and marry. Lighter skinned mixed women were the ones that white men were more likely to date and marry, whereas the darker skinned women, white men were not as likely to marry than Black men were. So it's interesting how I'll use that study sometimes used, I think, to kind of paint this narrative, and they may take one little section or one little paragraph and say, oh, this is it. And it's like, no, if you actually read thoroughly, which makes sense. A lighter skinned person might be able to kind of fit easier into white culture versus somebody who's dark skinned, with woolly hair, if you will, strong feature, like, all that. So again, it was just, like I said, you said that, and it kind of reminded me of that.
What you're saying is so true, and it also reminds me of, like, because I feel like it's like, especially when you look in like media and stuff like that, I feel like it's two extremes, right? It's either like this exotic looking like light skinned person, or it's a strong melanated like Black person that you don't really commonly see because so many people are mixed up, and like that's a different part. But then like we're forgetting like all the natural tones, in between. Like they highlight one and then they highlight the other, and then it's like, but what about the people who just naturally look like a certain way? So it's that study is very interesting. That's very
yeah. I linked to it. I can, in fact, I should write myself a note because I say this and I forget. But yeah, I'm gonna try to link to it in the description.
Yeah.
So you can check it out. But it was interesting. So if you are on here, please get those likes up. Also, special shout out to the super chats. I see Snuggles. Shout out to Snuggles. I see. Are you trying to convey when it's white, it's right in black eyesight? And by the way, it does this conversation happen all over the world? I'm assuming that he's asking if this colorism conversation happen all over the world. In my experience, it certainly does. Yeah. Right. I haven't been in every country, but I do know colorism is it's a talking point, obviously in the Caribbean. It's a thing, obviously, out in certain parts of Africa, in India, there's this thing. So it is, to my understanding. Now, I'm not an expert on this. This is probably where enter a dark skin activist Rashida. She could probably she could give her 2 cents on it. But yeah, I think it certainly is something.
It is, because even in Asia, a lot of the, because I'm in the beauty industry, right? I've been a hairstylist forever.
Oh, awesome.
Okay. And but so I know a lot about like beauty industry, beauty products and skincare products, all of that. And the thing is that even in places like Asia, where you can see that most of them are more kind of like fair skinned, right? But in all of their beauty products, they all have like this skin bleaching agent to make themselves seem whiter. So that's Asia, where they're not even like as pigmented as we are. So think about that. So you have like places like Asia, Africa, the Caribbean. We're in America. So we have to assume that it's literally everywhere. I mean, it's all about, and this is not us trying to convey that it's white is right. It's this is what happens when places are colonized by a certain person. That person becomes superior. So then they start saying, the closer that you look to the person who colonized, wherever you're from, probably the better you are, the more empowered you will be. It's a mindset thing that makes total sense.
Absolutely. No, absolutely. Also, shout out to Eugene Steele with the 10 on the super chat. I see. Let's see. At first, at first I was thinking that leveling up meaning to build a better version of oneself visually, mentally, and spiritually, but there can be some bad aspects. One can build up arrogance and delusion. Shout out to Eugene Steele. Yes. One can most definitely build up arrogance and delusion. Absolutely. If you're here, please get those likes up. Also, feel free to show support to the show through Super Chat. You can also find me on Cash App or Venmo, Chez, and I'm having a conversation with Rivah. And we are just talking about, can women level up without marriage? So continuing on with this colorism conversation, do you think Black women perpetuate colorism?
In what aspect?
In different ways. Perpetuate it as far as help instigate it. Do they maybe support, celebrate, promote things that would essentially contribute to more colorism or colorist ideology, colorist behavior, actions? Does that make sense?
I'm going to say yes, because I mean, you have issues that there might not even, okay, for example, I'm just going to say that I'm the dark-skinned woman and you are the light-skinned woman, okay? And maybe we work a job.
Okay.
And I don't know you that well. And maybe you are, very focused when you come in, and you're very like structured in a certain way, and you look well put together or whatever. And, maybe you have your own thing going on in your personal life, and you walk past me. Oh, she thinks she better just because she light-skinned. And it's like, you don't know what's going on. Like, why are you now taking that up on your head when she could just be a nice person, not a nice person,
Yeah.
Like, you as the woman should look at people's character because of how you're judged, and not automatically, because I think that within our own community, we don't need no help. Okay, we don't need no help from nobody else, but within our own community, that whole crab in a barrel mindset, and
that's facts.
Between each other, like, I feel like we're the ones who kind of talk about it more between each other than from outside coming into us. So I would say yeah.
So then you would say that just by the fact that, and some of this could be motivated by self-hate, right? But the simple fact that we as women start to now organize ourselves, prejudge others based upon their complexion, that to a certain extent is actually instigating colorism.
Yes. And then also, one aspect of it, I see Jasmine, I saw it, I think it went by. She says, or she does think she's all that because she's light skinned. And this is another aspect as well.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we do have that truth, you know, where some women feel like they are better because of their hair texture, because they're fair skinned, because they are passing, because everybody walks up to them and asks them that if they're mixed. And they do carry an air about themselves, which is still a truth. So what I love that comment, because you have an aspect where it's like, oh, she thinks she better because she's this, and then that same woman is like, I do think I am because I am that. You know, look at me, I'm Hillary Banks. You know, like, you know what I'm saying? So it's true. It's so true. It's hard.
Yeah.
It's true.
No, yeah, I think to your point, yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I mean, now I'm not going to say that Black women that they caused it or that they are the ones that made it up. Obviously, they're not.
Right.
Sometimes our behavior isn't really helping, right? Even when I seen just online within the last year how, there's this beef between, darker skin versus light skin, and there are certain channels that are just like, do not mess with a light skinned woman, or there's this distrust. I remember I interviewed a woman a couple of months ago. She's mixed. She's Mexican and Black, and very much I think identifies with the Black side. But I remember her telling me that growing up, that she was oftentimes bullied by dark skinned girls, and they would like pull her hair and make fun of her because she was, she had longer hair and she has really like loose waves, and she kind of had this look. And she said she would get picked on all the time. And it was interesting because so often I hear it the other way around. I've heard of dark-skinned women saying, "Oh, I got picked on because I was this. I got called, crispy, all this kind of different stuff." Yeah, so to hear it the other way around, I was like, okay, this is probably happening on both sides, because at the end of the day, something about you don't like yourself for whatever reason, you're going to project that somehow,
It is like that. When I was growing up, I kind of had like an identity crisis. I didn't know anything that was going on. Okay. I literally had no idea what was going on. My family is from the Caribbean, and they're from Jamaica. And my mom, if you saw my mom looks maybe Puerto Rican Italian. Okay. My grandmother is dark skinned. My grandfather is basically white. You know what I'm saying? But they're from Jamaica. So when we were growing up, if you see my family, we're like a rainbow. There's everyone, like
every complexion,
brown, really dark, really, really light, white. Like we literally But I would say, I remember growing up, I asked my mom, I was like, what am I? Because I would hear I would see the groups at school, as a child, and my mom would be like, we're Jamaican. And so I still didn't know what that meant. Like I really didn't know.
Right.
But the kids at school made me aware of skin pigment and skin color, because I had no idea. So I would have I would hang out with my friends that were Black, and to them they would say I wasn't Black enough, and then I realized, like, when I was hanging out with the white people, that I kind of didn't really understand, you know what I'm saying, certain things. And then I always ended up migrating to a group of people who were always in between, like the Spanish or the mixed or whatever, because we didn't really fit anywhere, because it's true. Like, you will have the people who are fully 100% like Black, even if they look at you and they still see a Black girl, if they're dark skinned and you're light skinned, oh, you got to be mixed, or you got to be something else, or you got to be this, or you got to be that. And it's like, but I just want to be your friend. Like, I don't even want to think about any of that. I just want to be your friend. So again, it's a subject that a lot of women, I'm glad that you're asking these questions, because it's a subject that a lot of people are afraid of or don't really like to talk about. But it's something that I feel like we should enlighten our children about. We should we should have these conversations as women, because for me, I've always like admired so much of like just all of us as women, like all Black, you know what I'm saying? No matter what we look like those strong, again, like unfiltered, mixed, if you have like whatever have you, of like a Black woman that's like so strongly melanated. I'm like, oh my God, like just the beauty and purity for me. You know what I'm saying? Whereas a lot of them have a certain mentality and they feel like, well, you're better because you're this. I'm like, but no, but you're like literally like beautiful though. Like you don't have imperfections. You're finding beauty in something that looks a little different. But I always say, like, you can get some people who want to have a mixed baby. That does not mean that this baby is going to be beautiful. Okay, I'm just being honest. I'm not trying to be mean. I'm just trying to be real. That just because a baby is mixed with a certain hair texture don't mean that your baby is a supermodel.
Yeah, I remember growing up. That was it. Like you wanted to be mixed. You did not want to be just Black. You wanted to have something in there. Like everybody was claiming. You would have people that was dark as night claiming they was part Cherokee or their grandma was Cherokee Indian. No, I'm sorry. You are just Black. Stop. Like,
right.
No, I hear you. It really is layered, and I think it's interesting. I saw a comment in there saying, "Look, Black men did not invent colorism," which, yes, to your earlier point, yes. Now there's men and there's women who do perpetuate colorism. We've seen colorist remarks. We've seen entertainers say colorist remarks. We've seen male entertainers and we've seen female entertainers. So we know within the Black community there are people on both sides who perpetuate colorism. It is what it is. Yeah. But you going back to the study that I showed, I've had conversations about this with men who are just like, okay, so are you going to turn down a Black woman because she's dark? Because she's too dark? And most of them, of course, guys usually have their preference, right? They're going to have, every guy has their preference, but I'm like, if a woman is attractive at the end of the day, she's attractive, period. It don't matter if she's dark, or if she's really, really light, like it's right. Like, you're pretty, you're pretty. And right. I mean, I've seen, if you think of some of the popular Black supermodels, usually they're like really dark. They're not going for really the brown skin as much. They're going for like really dark or ethnically ambiguous. You're not really seeing any of the spectrum as far as the models I can think of that are really popular. So, it's something. It is something. But if you guys are here, please get those likes up. Get those likes up, share this, tag it with anybody who you think may find it interesting. Also, show support to the Cash App, or you can also find me on Venmo or Cash App, Chez. Also, if you have a Cash App or anything, please let me know. I want to make sure I add it to the description so people can support the channel as well. Send it to you in the back. Yes, but this has been a good conversation regarding colorism. As we know, it's very much real, and I think women more in particular, it does impact men, obviously, but I think the way that it impacts women, I think, is so unique because whether or not we agree or disagree, like it or don't like it, we are largely judged by the way that we look. And so I think for that reason, that's why you see women, Black women in particular, really just hammering that over and over and over and over again. But I do think it's important to know, like, we cannot blame colorism on Black men. They're not the colorism, and in very many instances, we're not really the perpetuators of it. I think sometimes, like when I think of this whole anti-Black male divestiture movement that I see, I think that's one of the biggest ways to promote colorism, because how do you complain about Black men being colorist, right? And then you specifically go after white guys, and then you create mixed children that you don't like because they're light. So I think those kinds of things, we as Black women, we're doing that. Black men ain't got nothing to do with that. So like I said,
Sade, I have to tell you, I have to tell you, when I first came on your channel and we had that whole meetup, that was the first time I ever heard of the word divestors.
Oh, really?
I had no idea what we were talking about until the conversation kept going. I'm like, oh, that's what you're talking about? What do you mean? And like, so yeah, like I'm honestly baffled at the way that the conversations are going. Like, like if you can't get down with this, I'm gonna go over here with this person and this, and I'm like, this is the same aspect that women try to say, like, oh, if a man doesn't like a dark-skinned woman, oh, he don't like his mom. And it's like, but you're a Black woman and you don't like Black men, so do you not like your dad?
Right. To be fair, I was newer myself to the divestiture movement. I found out about it more by default, not necessarily. And then when I started noticing was that some of the larger channels, really large popular female channels, like I would kind of hear this word come up, and I was like, oh. And at first, I was kind of like, divesting, okay. And me personally, I don't have any issues with interracial dating or marriage, so I was like, okay, not a big deal. But then I started to notice that there were certain just ideas that I thought were really harmful that were associated with this term divesting, and that's where I was just like, something is off here. And there's friends of mine who are married, interracially, and they're just like, yeah, I don't agree with that divestiture ideology, because it's from what I've seen, a lot of what I've seen is really it's married with self-hate or or misandry. So that's, to me, what I think is negative about it. Not the idea of necessarily dating somebody, whoever, but it's the misandrous. It's the using that as an example to hate on yourself or other people. To me, that's bad.
I agree, and I also feel like, you out there and listen, it's hard enough. Okay, life is hard enough. So if you find somebody that you love and you connect with, who is anybody to tell you? However, I did a reaction video to something about like divestment or interracial relationships, and I never gave my own opinion. Okay, I just did a reaction. I always am very unbiased, and I just, talk to facts. And people were so angry with me, like, people wanted me to either go completely against it, or they wanted me to completely. And I'm like, hey, I was just doing a reaction. But for me, one of the aspects that I feel like is important, and for the people who do have a problem with the whole divestment, interracial dating, this is one aspect that I completely understand. When you look across everywhere, with us, if that whole being pure and being, two people being as Black as we possibly can be, because we already know, okay, through the whole thing, the ship drop-offs and the colonizers and the mix, nobody's really, especially in the West, nobody's really 100%. If you do your ancestry DNA, you're going to have some kind of mixture. But when we talk about, other countries that stay where they are, if we continue to melt, what will be of our race? So I understand that point 100%. So I just wanted to say that.
Okay, yeah. No, wait. So you're saying you understand a woman going, or a man for that matter? Because I'm like, I'm like, if a Black man wants to date or marry out, okay. If a Black woman wants to do it, okay. So you're just saying in general, if someone wants to date or marry out, you understand because of the history of mixing, or you're saying
no. What I'm saying is I understand the people who don't want to.
Oh, who don't want to do? Yeah. Who are just like,
if you look at the people if you look everywhere else, most people stick to themselves. That's how nations.
Yeah,
that's keep going. So if a lot of people keep mixing, what's gonna come of our race? You know what I'm saying? So I completely understand people who are very gung ho on not, doing that, not, dating out, because other countries do it, and we don't say anything about that. When the Asians are saying, no, you can't marry him, you got to stick to.
Oh, I had a friend who told me she was a Chinese woman, and she was dating a Black guy. No longer is doing so, but at the time she was like, man, like I'm kind of scared to take this anywhere, because if I take him home to mom, I'm going to lose my inheritance. I'm like, well, you know what I mean? And that's a very real thing. She comes from some money. So, and the reality is, I think this is always such a charged topic, but at the end of the day, people still pretty much date and marry within their own ethnic group. It's just kind of always how it's been. So of course you're going to have exceptions, but by and large, that's just it's generally what happens. I know for me, I've lived in all white environments. I've spent time where I was the token in the school. I was a token in the classroom. And I just was always, even with that, I was always attracted to Black men. I was never really into white guys like that, although I was around them all the time, Right. So,
I agree. And again, that's an aspect. I agree. You know what I'm saying? Like I said, outside is tough enough. If you find somebody that you connect with, especially, someone that as a woman that you can cooperate with, Sister Shahrazad Ali said, Men, if you have a woman that can't get on your page and can't be cooperative, leave her and go get somebody that can. Okay. So in that aspect, as long as people are having functional and nice, calm, non-toxic relationships, kudos. But like you just said, it's about the love within yourself, okay, and knowing yourself. We're always going to have different aspects of it, because if you go to places like China or anywhere else across the world, you're going to see people who are mixed, but the greater majority is going to be people who like their own. So I just don't see anything wrong with Black people having values, those similar values for themselves, because I feel like when other people do it, it's fine, but when Black people try to have a certain standard, people try to tell them that they can't have that.
Right, which is weird. Like we don't ever hear things being, oh, the false promise of Chinese love.
Right.
The promise of Jewish love. Like those conversations don't exist. But for whatever reason, Black folks, the idea of a Black man marrying a Black woman seems to just be so revolutionary and crazy. And I'm like, do you not understand that no other ethnic group is having this conversation? What does it say about where the mentality is? So yeah, no, I hear you on that. But if you're on here, please get those likes up. Tag everybody on this discussion who you think they find it interesting. Also, shout out to L Nixon for the 10 on the Cash App. I appreciate you. I also, real quick, I saw some other Cash Apps come through a few days ago. I saw I don't want to mess up that name. Last name Singleton. Singleton, appreciate you for the 10 on the Cash App. I see KJ Jojo for the 20 on the Cash App. Also, this came in a few days ago, and I wanted to give the special shout out. So I appreciate all of you guys. Again, if you're here, get those likes up. And we're talking about, can women level up without marriage? We've had quite an interesting conversation regarding colorism and how it affects women, as that is always a hot topic. So it's been fun. So on to the next question. Is single motherhood a level up?
Hell no. Is single motherhood a level up? Hell no. No.
Why? So why not?
Why would it be? I mean, because at the end, okay, I think for a level up, a woman who's leveled up, okay, in this aspect, especially when it comes to maturity, because I'm gonna bring maturity into it. The first thing that you're going to think of is the well-being of your child. So if you're in a situation where it is something that's harmful for your child, a toxic situation for your child, and I'm not just talking about you and him can't get along. I'm talking about like physical, certain types of, then I would see in that one person aspect how it could be a leveling up your situation for your child, okay? To give your child a better lifestyle, because this person is a harm to you guys, okay? And that's situational. That's just, you ever seen like the movie Enough?
Yeah, so you're saying, and if a woman is in a struggle love situation,
not even struggle love, we're talking about like harm, okay?
No, not struggle, sorry, not struggle love, toxic. I didn't want to say toxic love, but she's in a toxic environment. She got, basically impregnated by a toxic man. Then she's leaving because she doesn't want to be beat or something like that.
And or protecting your child, because some people do stuff with their own child.
Yeah,
getting your child out of that situation, protecting your child. Great for you that you have that ability and that strength to be able to do so and mature and be able to do stuff. Good for you. Now, okay. In general, though, those are those one-off situations. In general, hell no. Okay? Hell no, because your child, again, should be the one that's coming first. You should be thinking about how are you going to raise a balanced human being. They need both aspects. You cannot give your child what a man can provide for your child. Not even just a man, but their father. So in no way can you be talking about you leveling up and you this and you that, and you're glorifying the lifestyle of raising your child alone. There's nothing glorious about that situation.
No. I mean, if you talk to single mothers, honestly, they're not, sitting around getting their nails done and massages. Now, I actually saw, I think it was O'Shea Duke Jackson commentary on this when I was speaking to Rihanna in her recent situation of now essentially being a baby mama. And what when I agreed with that commentary was kind of this idea of like, what's going to happen is that there's going to be young girls who are going to look at that and be like, oh, look at them. They're so cute. She can do it. She's over here, pictures of a baby bump, you know what I mean? Piercings, cute outfit, photo shoot, and she can do it. I can do it. And it's like, the thing about it is, she's a billionaire.
She's a billionaire.
Right. Billionaire. So like, I think what happens is, I don't think there's any situation where you need to be having a child out of wedlock. That's just me. Marry before you carry. But there are people who like if you're gonna do that, if you're not gonna do that, then I'm like, somebody like her who's a billionaire and her baby daddy's a millionaire. It's like, okay, I'm not saying that that's ideal, but
Rihanna he don't have to work.
Right.
So that's will be provided for.
But the point is, she is an exception. They are an exception, yes, not a rule. And unfortunately, there's young girls and there's just grown women even who still, whether we know it consciously, subconsciously at the very least, we're looking at these different scenarios. We're looking at celebrities because of celebrity worship, and that kind of informs our experience, or it's kind of like the measure that we use to measure our life, to say, oh, well, they can do it, so then I should be able to do it. Oh, it looks cute over there, so then why can't I? And I'm like, I think about that. How many women are going to look at that, or look at these celebrities who are like, yeah, oh, well, she got impregnated by her boyfriend and it's cute. And the reality is, it's like, you're not them. You don't have billions in the bank. And most single mothers, there's a report that came out a few months ago from, I don't know if it was Time, Washington Post. It was one of those major magazines. And it was talking about, eviction, the rent moratorium, which during the pandemic. And they were saying, single mothers are at the most at risk for being evicted because they tend to be the most financially impacted.
Right.
Black women in particular, like Black women led, I guess, female-led households, as far as financially, there's poverty is is a lot more common in that scenario versus a woman who's married, things like that. So
I listen, I understand that things happen, okay? Mm-hmm. And I like this comment, the comment that says money is a factor in all of this. This is so true, because you know why? Rihanna, and it has nothing to do with ASAP being involved in the child's life. I always believe two parents, that's who you listen. Women, we're the ones who choose who's born, okay? And that's just keeping it 100. Regardless, you chose this man. That's your child's father. This child deserves to know who both parents are. This child deserves to have a relationship, unless there's a situation, of course, of harm, okay? But when you have Rihanna money, Rihanna can have a nanny. Rihanna don't even have to technically raise that child if she don't want to, because she don't want somebody to do that. Okay. Right. In real life, who is coming to take care of your child at the house? Like, for you, who does not have any of these resources, it's not easy. It's not easy. You know what I'm saying? I agree with the statement, marry before you carry, for a lot of different reasons. And one of the biggest reasons are, and again, finances play a big part. Because I watched a piece of Danica Marie did a live, I think it was yesterday. And I watched a piece of it. I didn't even get to watch it live. I had to watch a replay, and she was talking about this. And it's funny because a lot of women are actually, some people are shaming her for her being a baby mama. Like, oh, well, why didn't she get married? And it's like, because she's trying to protect maybe her assets.
That could have been why. She's like, look, if I marry you, I may be having to pay you
you have different conversations. Okay, we need to talk about the people who making regular money, who are, like you said, are idolizing these people and trying to act like, oh, well, Rihanna did it, I could do it too. No, Rihanna's protecting herself. You need to protect yourself. You need to, when you're married and you have a child, it's a different type of protection. People already put that into aspects. Whenever, if it doesn't work out, you guys get divorced, there's already stuff on paper, okay, that you guys are gonna have to work things out in a certain manner.
Right. I think at the end of the day, I find it interesting how for whatever reason there seems to be less fear or less of a social stigma with a woman getting, I guess, having a baby or having a child, but when it comes to marriage, it's like, oh, like you got to jump through all these hoops. And of course, I'm certainly saying you should very much do your due diligence if you're looking to get married and settle down with a person. By no means do I say that that's just an easy process for you. Just don't think. But I'm like, having a child is equally, if not more, as serious. And so for some reason, it's come to where, oh, you can just kind of have a baby and that's no big deal. But marriage for women, it's like, oh, I don't want to settle. And it's like, so what is the disconnect? And
I
so
agree.
I don't understand.
I personally think that having a child is way more serious than getting married.
Mm-hmm.
Way more serious, because now you have another person in the mix. It's not just about how you feel and how he feels. It's about how everybody's going to be affected by the situation. So I agree with you.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. If you were on here, please get those likes up, tag anybody on this discussion, or share it with somebody who you think will find it interesting. We're talking about whether or not women can level up without marriage. Also, if you'd like to show some love, please send in a super chat. You can also find me on Cash App or Venmo, Chez. You can also find Rivah on Cash App, Rivah TV. So we appreciate all the love and support. On to the next question. Let's see. Okay. So can women level up without a man?
Okay. I'm glad you asked. So when I saw the title, I was thinking about this, and it depends on what level up is. You know, she can level up in her business, maybe. She can level up, you know, financially. She can level up in her home space, the home that she lives, because of her finances. Once again, she can level up her dressing. She can level up her diet. She can level up in a lot of different aspects. However, there is a certain leveling up that comes only when you are in a marriage with somebody, because you can be a person that's out here killing it in the work field, in your business, in your home, in your finances, in your fashion, all of that, but you don't know what selflessness is. Okay, right. You don't know what it means. You know, when you're in a relationship with a person, especially so in close proximity, like a marriage, living with somebody, long-term relationship, whatever the aspect is, that person is a mirror showing you who you are and what you're made of, and the stuff that you really have to work on. The stuff that nobody can tell you. You know, the stuff that the people at your job doesn't see, your mom doesn't see it, your family doesn't see it, your friends don't see it. That person is holding a mirror to you in your most vulnerable moments to show you what you really need to level up on. So I think you can level up financially, business-wise. You can look good to the world, but there's a certain aspect that you're not going to be able to level up past without having that, you know, again, relationship, marriage with somebody who can really, really see you.
Right. So you're basically saying, which makes sense, that there are certain things that you can achieve as a single person, right? Yeah. There's certain things that you're never really going to be able to fully understand without being in a committed relationship with another person, which I totally agree. I mean, marriage is a mirror. And I remember one of my marriage counselors told me and my husband this before we got married. And he was like, you know, there's just certain concepts, even certain spiritual concepts, that you don't really fully understand until you are connected to another person. Like, you are bonded to another person. There's just certain things that the revelation doesn't really hit until you're like in it. So, but you know, it's funny that you mention, you know, leveling up financially, leveling up in business, because I wanted to bring this report up real quick, because oftentimes I see two things. I see career being the reason that women don't want to settle down. And I'm going to bring up two things. So first, I'm going to bring up this one video that was sent to me. It's a little snippet, about 30 seconds, but it was the most lovely Lonnie Love, who had something to say about relationships. Now, I think within the manosphere that she's not a favorite. She's not a favorite. But I want to share this because I think it really speaks to what's a common belief among women. So I'm going to pull this up really quick. and play it because I think it's kind of related to what you were saying before. Let me see if I can bring it up, if it's going to let me do that. Okay. Okay, 1 second.
And you find out who you are, God is not going to let you down. He's going to give you whatever you want, whatever that fulfillment is. We are taught as women, you gotta find somebody. You gotta find somebody immediately. When you're in your 20s, when you're in your 30s, you gotta find. If you don't find somebody, you're an old maid. Nobody wants you. I can guarantee you, ladies, if you love yourself and you find out who you are, God is not going to let you down. He's going to give you whatever you want, whatever that fulfillment is.
So, okay. So, so you see there, for her, leveling up is focus, ladies, focus on yourself.
Right.
Right. Do you first, do you boo, however you want to put it. And when you do that, as you find out who you are, you accept who you are, all those different things, then God's going to send you the man. So focus on you, focus on you, do you boo, all that kind of different stuff. What do you think about her message? What are your thoughts on her message to women? Because I think this is connected very much to whether women can love.
We hear the boss chicks saying this all the time. It's very connected, and it's sometimes when you see somebody crying so deeply. Hey, Crimson Girl.
Sorry, I saw that. I saw that, and I'm like, I got to give a hand clap because I'm like, no, yes. I'm sorry. God is not your husband. Jesus is not your husband. This is no, that's not what this is about. There are men for that. So I'm laughing because I've had to have a few conversations just about that, where it's like, y'all, you can't use spiritual, you can't hide behind spirituality. Okay, that's supposed to enhance your life, and that's supposed to actually challenge you to change and probably challenge you to be relational. But if you got a bad attitude and you're hard to deal with, you can't say, oh, well, God's my husband. It's like, no, you're single because nobody wants to deal with you because you have a bad attitude. Once you deal with your attitude, and then maybe you can actually find a real husband and then let God be God. But that's another conversation. So exactly what you were saying.
Yes, because what you're saying is so on point. And also, it ties into what I'm saying, and you didn't even know I was going to say this, but sometimes when you see that person that is so heartfelt and telling women these things and they're crying, and I'm telling you, like, when you do this and when you do that, like, don't focus on in your 20s and your 30s and it's fine, and you will get somebody and blah 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 blah. Sometimes those tears is because of the situations that you missed. Sometimes those tears are from the bed that you made. Sometimes those tears are coming from a place of not evolving. Okay, sometimes it's really hurt that you're crying from, and you're trying to use that hurt to kind of motivate other people and tell them it's still going to work out anyways. And I feel like we need to stop lying to each other, especially as women. If we love each other as we say we do, I have not seen people who are so women driven and women empowerment and feminists and all this kind of stuff. They say they love women and they be lying to them all day long. I'm not gonna lie.
And you're also not going to get, you're not going to be as popular if you don't not lie. But when I listen to her, I thought about a few things, because you hit on a good point where there are women out there at the end of the day, they just regret. And instead of saying, I'm regretful, I maybe overlooked some good potential, it's a lot easier to just say, well, God, just blame it on God. And God, he was waiting for me to get so perfect and primed and ready, and he didn't want me to settle. And so now it's God's fault that you passed by certain situations.
I want you to be alone.
Right. And so here's the thing. It's like, I think at the end of the day, women should have a choice. I think women should really have a choice. If you decide that, hey, you don't want to focus on you do want to focus on your career in your 20s and 30s, you really don't want to settle down. You're not, the idea of settling down, or the idea of marrying or being under submission or authority of a man, you're just like, no, you don't want that. I'm like, okay, go for it. But I think what we need to do is we actually need to have an honest conversation about what that actually means. If you're going to be a single woman, if you're going to bypass or focus on your career these years, you have to know how that's going to impact your sexual marketplace value, if you will. You're going to have to know how that's going to impact your life moving forward. It's not a judgment on whether or not you're a worthy person. It's just a reality of what it means living in this life. Men generally, right? They're visual. They don't want women with, kids. They don't want women with a certain amount of mileage. So if you're going to wait until you're older to get married, there's going to be certain consequences. There may be certain things that you have to compromise on. And I wish we could just be honest about what does each decision actually entail. If you marry young, there's going to be certain things you can't do. If you marry older, there's going to be certain things that you have to deal with. So let's just be honest about what that actually means versus it being, oh, well, it's God's fault that I didn't get married, and then just pray and God's just going to give you what you want. It's like, no, actually, if you're listening to God, he may tell you to submit. He may actually tell you, you know what, you need to stop. You're being money hungry. And because I'm like, sometimes it's like, you're not listening to God. So this is not his fault. You can't blame on him. This is you.
I want to know how come you always hear people talk about what God said and what God did, and it's because of God that did this and because of God that did that. And so most of these people who are talking, right, we're going to say that they're obviously Christians, right? They have like a Christian mindset. They read in that same Bible that all the other Christians are reading. But how come in their Bible it says when 2 or more are gathered, there I am in the midst? So how are they talking about being this lonely person, this one person, one away, when it's literally talking about when 2 or more are gathered, there I am in the midst? So it's literally, there's so many talks about relationships. There's so many talks about marriage within the same book that they're standing on, okay, with the same God that they're saying is connected to that book. But then they want to turn, those two things don't go together. Like, and this is why Sister Shahrazad Ali said it. Feminist was about white people business, and y'all stuck your nose in somewhere that y'all had nothing to do with. This had nothing to do with y'all, okay?
No, I hear you. I hear you.
Into your religious beliefs and your mindset, you want to attach things to God, but you also want to be like a half feminist, but then you want to be talk about you a Christian, and then you want to. What are you talking about? You're all over the place.
No, I hear you. And like I said, as somebody who is a Christ follower, if you will, like I certainly understand that there's times where I talk to people who claim to be spiritual Christians, whatever, and I'm just like, you do understand that the very book that you're reading actually implicates you in crime. And listen, like I said, it's the same thing. I don't, huh?
You said crime implicates you.
So crime, right? Or sin, or
right.
However you want to put it. Sometimes I say crime because literally that's what it is, but that's a whole nother conversation. But the whole point is, it's like people don't understand. Like for me, as somebody who's like, hey, my relationship with God is serious. It's not a joke. This is life or death. It's like I stand here before God, and it's not about being perfect, but it's like there are certain things that I'm held accountable for. And people just think this is some cute fairy tale. I'm just gonna just do what I want, and then God's just gonna automatically bless me because like God's some like sugar daddy in the sky. It's like, no, you don't play with some of these different kind of things.
Tell the truth. You
don't do that. I'm like, God's still telling people that I don't want to get off into a tangent, but it's like people are still dying because of disobedience to God. Like they don't understand this is serious. So when I hear people just kind of throwing around little cute stuff, like, oh, I'm just going to do whatever I want, and then God's going to bless me, or it's God's fault. It's like, no, God had nothing to do with it. That was your decision. And don't confuse your bad decision making with the divine, with what's heavenly. It's like, no, you have free will. You made a choice. There's consequences associated with that. And that's not about being judgment. That's just what it actually is. Like you said, if people actually read what they said that they believe, they'd be like, ooh, I don't even know if I want to follow this.
That's what,
so.
But that's the thing, though. If we're being honest, they don't even know it, though. It's the tradition thing. But then
tradition. That's true.
Tradition, but then they stand on it to try to defend points, and then they try to say, "Oh, well, God will send me this." But then at the same time, you talking about cook for my man, submit to some man. I ain't doing that. That's what your book says, though. That's what your Bible says.
Quite literally. So it's like,
what are you talking about?
Yeah, so you can. It's not have it your way. This is not a have it your way. Okay. Shout out to I see Great Britain with the 10 on the super chat. I see appreciating the conversation. Also, shout out to Gregory Williams for the 10 on the Cash App for 2 fine pick-mes. If you're on here, please get those likes up. Tag anybody on this discussion who you think may find it interesting. We're talking about whether or not women can level up. I've been having a very fun chat with Rivah TV, so please be sure to check her content out. Also, feel free to show support to her on her Cash App. You can find her. It's Rivah TV Cash App, right? I want to make sure I got that right. All right, so on to the next question. Let me see. Actually, no, this kind of goes into something else I was going to share, but I'll ask you first.
Okay.
So why are so many boss babes broke?
Oh, what you said?
Why are so many boss babes broke?
Broke?
I'm curious. What do you think?
Why you say they
Why
broke?
are so many boss babes broke?
Why you say they broke?
Because they are. I did a study about what was it?
I
don't know the exact number, but I think it was I went over the exact numbers on a live where it was basically talking about the amount of businesses, right, that actually do well. It's a very, very, very small percentage. Now, this doesn't mean that you shouldn't go out and try and do certain things, but what I guess I get what I'm cautious about is kind of throwing around these ideas and there not really being any substance to it. Right. So when women are sold a false fantasy fairy tale narrative and they're not actually shown the full scope of what comes along with that, that's how women end up being disillusioned. That's how they end up being disappointed. That's how they end up being, I think, set up for failure.
Yeah.
It's kind of like if you decide, okay, you're going to go in a 10 miles marathon. You're like, yeah, I'm going to run 10 miles. And yet you've never trained and no one ever sat down and told you, hey, you may get really tired. You may get sore. You better make sure that you stretch. You need to start working out certain muscles beforehand. You need to work on your core strength. Like you just out of nowhere just decided you're going to go on a 10-mile race. There's been no preparation. Nobody ever talked to you about what that meant. You didn't know you needed to hydrate yourself. You didn't know you had to have a good night's sleep. You didn't know you need to have certain shoes. So you're sold this pipe dream without and you're not told about all the different components that are needed for that to be successful. And I think a lot of us women have that. So we just think we're just going to boss up randomly and we don't need men and we don't need anyone else. And we don't actually know what that means to live this life as a single woman and to try to run a business or to try to, gain financially. Like 3% of Black women make 6 figures or more, 3%. About 1/3 of us with the poverty line or below. So we're not bossing up like that when we really look at the numbers.
Well, okay. Apparently, I think you said you know how to fight. That's what I heard. I heard you say you can fight. That's what I heard.
You said I'm not a fight?
You know how to fight, apparently.
Oh no, I'm harmless. Really, I'm harmless.
Listen, I don't believe it. But immediately I'm not gonna lie, I never thought about this at all. I never thought about them being broke. I never even thought about that. But now when we're talking about this conversation, I'm like, you know what? The first thing that comes to my mind, 2 things. One, a lot of our women out here are just out here immature. Let's be 100%. Very, very immature. Like if we really break down the reasons why they can't get into a relationship, why they can't submit to a man, why they can't respect a man, why they can't hold their tongue in conversations, what lack of self-control, it all goes down to immaturity. Fair point. It's almost like giving a child, like you just said, preparing for the race or giving a child a level of responsibility. And they think they're grown. They act like they're grown. They do things like they're grown. Their driver's license says they're grown, but they're actually a kid that's in a situation just running around in circles. Okay. And 2, it's going to be really unpopular opinion, but you're
here for it.
My second opinion is it's the same reason why they can't get into a relationship in a different aspect. Nobody can't tell you nothing. Okay, so you think you know everything. You think you know it all. You know, sometimes you need to ask. You're so busy trying to stunt on your friends that you can't ask certain questions, or you can't ask questions from people who maybe have more finances than you, or can teach you certain things. Your man can't tell you nothing. Your mom can't tell you nothing. Your daddy can't tell you nothing because you got money. Okay, nobody can talk to you. But then when stuff starts, hitting the fan, you have to deal with that in silence because you already done ran everybody off because they can't talk to you.
Right, that part.
So my 2 opinions: nobody can talk to you, can't tell you nothing because you know it all. Okay, you know everything, so you don't need no advice. You don't need any saving. And then 2, you're immature. Simple.
Okay. So you think those are 2 reasons that women are broke?
Yeah.
So I want to really quick. I want to bring this up because I think this is going to help illustrate what I was saying. Now, granted, this particular information I think was gathered from the 2017 or the 2018 Census Bureau, if I am not mistaken. But it's still pretty relevant because trends happen over years, decades. It's not going to just change over a year, especially when you look at the pandemic. So I think this information is still pretty relevant. But what we see here is, if we're just looking at income, right? What's just actually happening in the Black families in particular, I think it gives you a pretty good understanding. So just real quickly, just to give some, numbers, here we see this is what the average Black folks are making, right, compared to other races from different ages. So this is 16 years or older, 25, yada, yada, yada. Now, of course, we're a little bit below, but that's to be expected because of institutional racism. We know unemployment is stunted, even for Black men. There is a Business Insider came out about this, saying that they are not hiring heterosexual Black men in particular, because the same study will show that for whatever reason, they say gay Black men in some ways are actually getting higher paid, but that's another conversation. Either way, this is below. This is below. Here we see Black household income, right? So the median household income for Black families, it's about 43,000 compared to 65, right? Median family income, 54,000 compared to 80. And then now here's something that I want to look at really quickly. So here's married couple family income, right? 81,000. So this is a typical Black married family income, 81,000, those who are married. Now, if we compare that to single women head family income, it's about $35,000. So that's single woman head family income. I want to see if there's, I thought they had one that was households with retired income, household with social security. Okay, I thought there was one with men only, but maybe I missed that. But either way, if we're just looking right now, right, if we're looking at, okay, so single woman head family income. So these are basically households that are ran by a woman only. It's about 35,000, right? Now, if we're looking at couple family income, it's about 81,000.
Yeah.
So that's a pretty substantial difference. So going back to, kind of to answer your question earlier about, can single moms boss up, right? Or are single moms leveling up? As far as financially, we're based upon the numbers, that's not happening. Not to say not to say that it can't on a certain level, but by and large, as far as the average single, households that are ran by single women in particular are hit financially the most. There's really no way around it. Whereas households where there's 2 people working together, they're just a lot better off. And then again, this is not taken into consideration debt. This is not taken into consideration, assets, different things like that. But
right.
I just wanted to briefly go through that because I think those are kinds of just the different things that when we really start to look at what does it mean to level up, or what does it mean to be a boss babe, all those different kinds of things, we have to look at the real life implications. Because like I said, if you're going to be a single woman and you decide that I'm going to delay marriage and I'm going to focus on my career, granted, you can do that. But, if you're looking at the entrepreneur rates, it's as far as who actually is able to have a successful business, that's a small percentage, right? And then if we look at the amount of Black women today who make 6 figures or more, that's about 3%. Right. And then that's assuming you don't have kids. If you end up, you're single woman, you put off marriage, but then you become a single mother. Now your actual probability of now really gaining wealth and having a really good financial strong background, that goes down even farther. So, I'm not trying to be Debbie Downer. This is not about being Debbie Downer, but I think it's incredibly important to have these conversations of, hey, here's the implications of your choices. If you get married, these things are more likely to happen, just as far as a practical, financial, economic, whatever. If you don't, okay, but here's the different things that you now need to consider. And I think for whatever reason, these conversations they're not even brought to the forefront when women, especially when they're young, are figuring out how to navigate their life. And that ends up being detrimental in an economy right now, especially that is pretty brutal.
I think, and it makes me sad, when I really think about it, because girl, it just makes me so sad because everybody has this whole boss babe mentality. Everybody could boss up, and yeah, we don't need to worry about men. We don't need to think about men. Yeah. And it's like everybody who's telling you these things or who's giving you these pieces of these pieces of advice, they either have the finances. Okay, and they're nowhere close. They're part of that 3%.
Yep.
And they know for a fact that what it takes to get to where they are, and they know that there's a big probability that you might not get there. Okay, and that's just being 100%, being realistic and being honest. And these women are really like throwing away the opportunities of even being in 2-parent households or even living with somebody else because of this. What I like to think is the biggest detriment of all with our women is the ego. Okay. So you living with your ego alone with about $40,000, struggling, trying to keep it together, just so you can have your ego, instead of just putting your ego down and saying, ego, you're gonna have to go live on the street because I don't got time for this. Okay, you holding up the process, whether to just be cooperative with a man, live with a man, because it's rough out here. You know what I'm saying? And it's funny that I love that you come with studies and numbers. I really love that. Because I just be talking. I know, from the people I know from the people that I talk to, I know from like real life scenarios, but it's so important that people see the numbers, because sometimes people can think that we're just on here just making stuff up. You know what I'm saying? And you have the numbers, the studies of people saying this is what it is. So no matter what you see on Instagram, no matter what you see who getting quote unquote flued out, you know what I'm saying? Who's doing this and who's doing that? These women are sacrificing, ultimately, I could say, I feel comfortable enough to say here, like their souls, to be, used to get this man who has finances to take them on a trip or to do this and make them look cool for social media. But in real life, they don't really got it like that,
Right. And bingo, you hit the nail on the head. They don't really got it like that. And I have a real issue with women, young, old, in between, teenagers. I have a real issue with them comparing their lives to what's fake. There's been multiple reports that have come out and have tracked Instagram usage to depression among teens. And that God only knows how it's affecting millennials, Gen X, all, other people. But, specifically looking at teens, and they show that the more often that these girls were on social media, Instagram in particular, some of the studies that I read, the more depressed that they felt. And again, it's because they're measuring their everyday reality life to something that is, fake. Something that's narrated to something that is it's like a false depiction, because you're not seeing the whole picture. Yeah, maybe she's in a great dress next to a really nice car, looking like she's headed to, I don't know, a trip. And you don't know that her dress was rented, that the car is her neighbor's or like a friend, and that after that she's going to go Uber for the next 15 hours to try to make up for some rent. I know aspiring models who are beautiful, and they take pictures at mansions, and then when they're done, they go Lyft for 10 hours. So it's like,
but they don't got no food.
Yeah, or they skip meals, and then they look for dates, right, to get. They look for dates to try to get food. So again, I wonder how many of us women would actually be better off, right, we would be maybe happier or more content if we knew like, okay, I'm not the only one going through this. Okay, so I'm not crazy that I'm not in a new outfit every single day eating at a 5-star restaurant, because I think there's a need sometimes to portray this as real life. And like I said, very, very, very few people live that way. They live that way. And if you think that's supposed to be your reality as somebody making $35,000 a year or roughly around that as a single mother, if you think that's supposed to be reality and you know what you're living, no wonder people are depressed.
Listen, I love fashion, right? I love fashion. I love to look nice. I love to dress nice and all that kind of stuff, you know? These are my clothes. You can't tell me I can't wear my clothes. Okay? I'm too grown for that. I'm sorry. I'm not with the whole, and I understand, like, you might have specific outfits. Maybe you wore it to a wedding. You don't really want to wear it again. There's certain situations, but overall, you can't tell me I can't wear my clothes. Like there's these women that you see that they banned from H&M. Okay. They banned from Macy's. They banned from these places because all they do is return.
Oh,
grand return. They got you. They take your driver's license, so they got you in the system. You can't even come back.
Crazy. Now that I didn't know. That's
crazy. It's crazy.
Level of struggle.
Yeah, and it's crazy because you don't have it like that. You're just trying to portray a certain lifestyle to act like you do. And I actually heard this. I don't know where I was. I think it was on Anton's channel, and he had a live stream. And like, there was a young lady who was on there, and she called and she was talking about like this whole Birkin bag thing. And she's like, most of these Birkin bags that you see are not real. They're not real. And these girls are walking around and oh yeah, I got a Birkin. The bags start at $40,000. We know for a fact that you can't get that bag. Okay, let's not pretend.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. Especially if you over there living in an apartment. This is no judgment. No. This is no judgment against apartment living, but I'm just like, right. That's what I'm saying.
Priorities.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I like people that keep it real. I don't like the phony. I don't like the fake. I don't like the put on for it. I don't like that. I'm a real person. I like when people are real and authentic.
Yeah.
And true. You know,
you're a person with a real experience, and this is which most people.
It's so interesting to me that like our people are always tricked, but then like our people who can't be tricked. If you get what I'm saying, like we're the people who always looking at somebody's side eye and can figure somebody out like this, but at the same time we always like fall for the okie doke. Sad. It's sad.
Fall for the okie doke. I see Chinese made from the flea market.
Right.
If you are on here, y'all, get those likes up, tag anybody, or share this conversation with somebody who you think may find it interesting. We're talking about whether or not women can level up. I also want to give a special shout out to Richie Joseph for the 20 on these Cash app. Much appreciated. Much appreciated. Also, if you would like to show support, you can find me on Cash App or Venmo, Chez. Appreciate all the support. You can also feel free to send in your super chats. I will be sure to try to read all the super chats. I usually try to do that. Also, show support to Rivah TV on Cash App. And check her out if you haven't already. Check out her channel. She has some good stuff going on there. Now, on to the next question. We are almost at the end. Okay. So, with all that we've discussed, right? Colorism, boss babes, broke boss babes, financial struggles, all this kind of different stuff. In your opinion, can a woman level up without marriage?
No. I mean, I think there's a brim. No, I mean, you just gave us a stick, girl. You gave us the statistics, okay? So obviously that's a no. Obviously, when it comes to financially, I was trying to at least give them that, and obviously that's a no because you said it's 3% of Black women who are
6 figures or more. It's about 3%. Yeah.
So it's gonna be a no.
Yeah. Now it can. Now I mean, and like so, these figures change slightly, from time to time, but yeah, that's why I was thinking. I was like, if it's such a small percentage, how are all these 6-figure women calling into Kevin Samuels every 15.
Maybe lying.
Like somebody ain't telling the truth out here. Now, it's not to say that. I mean, listen. If you live in Kentucky, right, making $60,000, maybe that's doing good, So it's like we got to take all these things into consideration, because I think sometimes we'll just put numbers out here and not understand that cost of living. I live in the San Francisco Bay Area, so it's one of the, it's the highest here, or at least some of the highest here than any other place in the country. But me living here versus, like I said, if I was in, Wyoming, cost of living is going to be different. And what $40,000 can do here is going to be different than what $40,000 can do in Wyoming. So I think
that's true.
When we throw out these numbers, I wish sometimes it needs to be put within context of like cost of living, states, all that kind of different stuff, because it does make a difference,
Yeah, because I'm in Miami. We already know that's like.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that's I've never been. I've always wanted to go visit at least once, but I imagine it's expensive.
It is, but honestly, I actually lived in California for a little bit, for a small time, but I know California is extremely expensive.
It's like stupid.
It's crazy.
It's to the point where it's like, I think I've been here my whole life, so kind of like I'm used to it. But sometimes I see different stuff and I'm like, this is dumb. Like it's just so high, it don't even make sense. And they're always trying to find the tax stuff. Then I'm just like, right. Taxes are the highest. I think it's like, or at least some of the highest of other.
Girl, I was grocery shopping in Safeway, and they talking about I have to pay for my bag. Girl, I almost lost it.
Oh, that's been going on here for years. People now bring their bags, and if I forget, then you got to pay that 10 cents. It used to be, I think, like 5 cents, and then it went up to 10 cents.
Girl, I almost lost it. I gotta pay for the bag that you guys giving me my groceries.
Oh yeah, you got to pay for the bag. They charge you to breathe out here. Pretty much. But that's what I was saying. I was like, making $100,000 out here, and that's the person who's just been, if you've been working in corporate for 5 years, okay, you can do that. So that's like not hidden on much, but somebody making $100,000 out here in the Bay Area with 2 kids is on you're at the poverty level. You're on low income, or you're moving in with your parents.
How much?
If you're making $100,000 and you're a family of 4, a wife, a husband, and 2 kids, you're at the poverty line. And that was like 3 years ago. I think 2-3 years ago. So now with the pandemic, God only knows. But like I said, I mentioned this in my I had a live stream yesterday about talking about struggle love, right? And breaking down what that actually is. And I was telling, like, I have friends that I know, many friends that I know that worked for years in corporate, moving back home with their parents, trying to save up. I got one friend in particular that has a husband that works at Apple, which is, Apple, like iPhones, Mac, like they're a really good company to work for. He's been working there for a few years. He's well in his 30s, so he's been in corporate for probably over 12, 13 years. And at this point, he's moving back home with him and his family and kids are moving back home because they can't afford to save anything. Even with him working hours upon hours at a white collar job with a degree, like. So again, I'm not saying this to be a Debbie Downer. I think you should dream, you should level up, you should do whatever you can to monetize, to maximize your health, to maximize, your well-being, your emotional state, all that kind of different stuff. But you have to also be realistic. That's it. Just be realistic, and don't just take on some idea and then just think that, oh, I'm just gonna snap my fingers, then I'm just gonna have money trees, or just. As I can just snap my fingers and the perfect guy is just going to come because God's going to bless me with it. Like, and you have no responsibility, or you have none of your actions, actually matter in your success. And it's like, no, that's not true.
But how many kids do they have?
No, they have 4. So they do have a lot of kids. That's a lot of kids. But I'm just, I remember even at 2, it was like, okay, you're budgeting. But it's California is not a really family friendly place. Well, at least in California. There's probably certain places, if you go up north, where it's more quiet, and because up north it's like a whole different state pretty much, which is why they've actually tried to succeed a few times. It's different, but I'm like, if you're in the populated areas like the Bay Area or LA, it's not as family friendly because it's just really expensive.
Right, it is.
So Yep. So, but like I said, it's you got to take all those things into consideration. But you would say, based upon that, you're like, nah, a female cannot level up without marriage. Well, at the very least, financially.
I mean, that's the only thing I had. The only thing I had when I started the conversation
was a few level of it. So based upon that, no. Based upon that, ain't nobody leveling up as a woman. Of course, there's the exceptions. We can all point to an exceptions, but the general population, bam. So based upon that, then, is it accurate to say I'm a strong, independent woman? I don't need a man. Is that an accurate statement?
No. I mean, you're strong. You're strong, independent, and the only reason why you're saying that you don't need a man is because you can't get on the same page as a man, and every relationship you've ever been in has never worked out. So that's the way that you're coping.
Yep. No, I hear you.
I don't understand when people have this rhetoric that we don't need, like, I don't need a man. I don't need a man. I could do bad all by myself. I don't need a man. We need each other. What are you talking about?
And that's the thing. You are doing bad by yourself.
You're doing bad.
That's I think they don't understand. It's like,
you are doing bad.
So let's talk about it.
It's true.
Oh my gosh. Shout out to Bobby with the 5 on the super chat. I see I'm super behind, but thanks for the content, you too. Much appreciated. I also see, I think there's another one there I want to miss.
And I thought I saw somebody asked me a question
okay.
about, I think it was my the divorce and all that kind of, we'll talk about it. I have a video of it on my channel, but I see a lot of people wanting to know more in-depth things. So I'll probably do like a live stream and we'll all talk about it.
Oh, you're talking about for your story?
Yeah, I have one on my channel, but like that's like really old. But we can like talk about it on a live stream. I just didn't want to ignore that comment.
Yeah, no, all good.
Yeah.
And then I see it would be pretty difficult for a woman to level up unmarried. Sometimes she may think that she got it made single, but do not think of the long-term consequences. Absolutely. And this goes back to the point. There are certain things that can be done. And of course, there are certain liberties that you have as a single person. Absolutely. And there's also, with the liberty becomes more responsibility. Now you have to take care of yourself. Now, if you're sick and you're not working, where's the money coming from? You know what I mean? Now, if your car breaks down, it's you. Now, if you're unemployed, it's you. Now, so it's like everything is on you as a single person. And so, again, I'm like, when we have these conversations and we're trying to navigate about what we want to do, how we want to move forward, that needs to be taken into consideration. It does, because it is, yeah, there are certain challenges associated with being married. And yeah, there are also certain challenges associated with being single. So neither really is easy. It's just a matter of like, okay, what do you want to choose? And I'm saying, I wish and I hope that, the goal is so that a young girl, whatever, moving into adulthood, they should actually know here's a reality of what's going to be going on. Like, here's a true, hard, right reality. And then based upon that, what you choose is what you choose. And you can't blame it on anyone else. You can't blame it on men. You can't blame it on, colorism. You can't blame it on, it's like, no, this is what it was. This is what you chose. And then now you get to live it out.
That's love. And again, all this feminist, women empowerment, all this kind of stuff. And, you can do everything you want to do. And, then you'll have to pick who you want. And you have to figure out who you want to be with. It's lies. And love is saying, okay, yes, you do have choices. Yes, give thanks that you do have the ability to make a choice. Whatever choice you make, though, there's always going to be other things that come along with that choice.
Yeah, that's just the reality of being an adult. And
right,
we make mistakes. We make mistakes and we can learn from them. But I just think fantasy is never a good option. That should never be in the conversation when it comes to navigating real life, right? And navigating. I said this yesterday, where I was like, faith does not deny reality. As a spiritual person who believes in faith, I don't just like look at the world and it's like, oh no, COVID never happened. My faith, I believe. It's like, no, there's a pandemic, right? There are consequences with that. But it's like, now, okay, I'm learning how do I move from a more spiritual perspective? How do I move from an enlightened point of view, right? But faith doesn't deny reality. And I hear sometimes people you'll ask them blatant questions and it's just like, oh, I have faith. And it's like, but this has nothing to do with faith. This is just 2 + 2 = 4, right? You know what I mean? So yeah, fantasy is for Disney, absolutely. So yeah, so this has been a fun conversation. I think you were just kind of like, yeah, if we look at the numbers, and if we decide that level up is to level up financially, it's a lot harder for women to level up single. It just is what it is.
Yep.
Now, this enter in another conversation about why some men aren't wanting necessarily to get married because marriage laws and all that kind of stuff. That's a whole other topic. But at the end of the day, a woman is financially, it's harder for a woman to move ahead as a single woman. Just if we look at the numbers, if we just look at how people are actually doing, women are doing, it's harder for them, especially when you start having kids.
Yeah, and it's different. We genuinely, our bodies are not even wired. I don't care if women are doing that. Our bodies are not even wired to work as hard as a man to even be able to do certain things. Even if it took maybe you working 60, 70 hours a week, we don't have that. Okay. It doesn't mean that some women won't do it, but like, we don't have it. Like, we're not wired that same exact way.
It's funny. I have this one, a pastor I know very well. He's actually out in Nigeria, and great guy. And he's probably in his 60s. I remember when I first met him, he would be in California Monday, and then Tuesday he'd fly to Chicago. Wednesday he's in New York. Thursday he's headed to London. Friday he's stopping off to Arabia. Saturday he's headed to Nigeria. And like he would like jump states and sometimes continents within the matter of like a week. And that was his schedule. Right. And I remember talking to him, and I was like, I was just like, I'm listening to him, and then I'm asking him about his wife, and she's like, oh, she's at home. She stopped wanting to travel with me. And I'm like, of course. Because
right.
I'm going on speed that I don't like. I just don't understand. And I'm understanding why she's like, look, I'm going to be at home. I'm going to chill. You can go hop all around these continents, do whatever.
Right.
But
it's not the same. And even, if you just look at how our bodies are created, we have the same cycle as the moon cycle. Okay. And so even with that, like a lot of people go through so much stuff, endometriosis, pain, and all these kind of things, even in that space of time, but it's because of and this is like a whole different conversation, but because of the strain you're putting on your body when you're really supposed to be resting. Right. So, we're just wired differently. And I just want to know, like, when is there going to be a space and time where our women are not worried so much about competing, with each other, and I don't mean competing as in like, going out there being fit, being feminine, being beautiful, being all this kind of stuff because you want to be, I'm not talking about that on aspect, like you said, with the colorism, with, competing with their own man. I don't need you. I can do this all by myself. Like, when is the arrogance just going to fade away and the ego just fade away and you just be able to humbly look at things? And one thing I did want to say really quick, and I definitely want your response too. One thing I wanted to say was when you said about the colorism, and I feel like as women, we're the ones who are talking about what we endure. I think that it all starts with you as a person. If you can look at another woman and see love and not, have that same hat on or have their apprehensions that other people have on us, period. Because people are already looking at us in a certain way. Whether you're light skinned or you're dark skinned, you have some people that's going to walk in and be like, oh, these black girls. Okay, yeah, so we don't need that between each other. So, but it takes you as a person to be able to change that. You in front of you. You know what I'm saying? Don't look all around. Don't talk about, well, people put us in this predicament. Yeah, but you be the change you want to see. Starts with you.
No, you're absolutely right. I do think self-accountability, that's just step one. Yeah. Right? Just start with yourself. Not saying that this doesn't mean that you deny other problems or you overlook other issues, but there's certain things that we as people can control. And I think until we know that that's on point and until we know that that's all taken care of, it's better to focus on what you can control and what you can navigate versus something that's beyond your capacity. Right. So shout out to Percy with the 5 on the super chat. I I just want to say hey to two of the beautiful women on the panel. Good evening. Much, much, much appreciated. Yeah, no, like, so this has been a fun conversation. I appreciate you hanging out with me, and I'm glad we were finally able to have a one-on-one.
Yeah, for real. So much fun. And
Yeah.
I really appreciate you bringing me on. And I always, I love the dialogue that you have and the conversation that you bring. I really, really enjoy talking to you.
Oh, good. Yeah, same. Same.
Right.
Your perspective and instead of you being down to earth, it's always fun when you're talking to honest people. I've talked to a few dishonest people, and I'm like, yeah, on my platform, and I'm just like,
when they're done, girl. When they're done that too. Okay, trust me.
Right. So, well, before we wrap this up, do you have any like final thoughts or anything you would like to leave with the audience?
No, I just want to say again, thank you for inviting me. Thank you, everybody who was in the chat and like very active in this conversation. I definitely appreciate it. I love that we are having these conversations within our space. They're so necessary, and they're always going to be based out of wanting to see the best for each other. These aren't, it's not like we don't like each other. It's not like we don't love Black women. It's not like we don't love our relationships and we just come up here talking from the people who got it all right and we're trying to put others down. No, this is about having open conversations that people can hear even in their homes, right? And they can have open dialogue and have deeper conversations that are so extremely necessary. So again, I'm always so grateful and thankful when people want to hear my perspective on different things. I loved this conversation. It was extremely, extremely epic. Make sure you guys are hitting that like button and make sure you guys share this video with your friends, with your family, so that they can have different mindsets, different perspectives in these same conversations. I'm just grateful to be here.
Yeah, thank you for hanging out. Also, you guys definitely be sure to show her some support. Cash Shop Rivah TV, you can find her there. Also, be sure to check out her channel. I know she does a lot of different reviews on content creators and just ideas in general. So yeah, check her out if you haven't already. Well, I do appreciate your time. I appreciate you being here, having this conversation. It was really fun. You were fun.
It was really fun.
You're welcome back anytime.
Thank you. And yeah, we definitely have to like, there's so many different segues to this conversation. So we definitely have to link up again for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Oh, definitely. All right. Well, you have a good night.
Thank you.
Okay, you take care. So, thank you all of you who are hanging out with me again this late afternoon over here, early evening for some of you guys. That was fun. It was fun. I always love talking to honest people, down to earth people. So, yeah, we covered off a lot. With this question, can women level up without marriage? I think, she ended off with the note of, if we look at the numbers, just as far as financially, what it means to navigate in this country by yourself, women fare better in marriages. There's really no way around it. If we just purely look at the numbers, women across the board financially are better off within the context of marriage. Now, with that said, of course, that doesn't mean that those women don't struggle. It doesn't mean that there's not issues there. It doesn't mean that there's not, financial challenges that exist. Single, married, in between that can exist. But again, I think what's more important to me is that whatever decision a woman wants to make, especially a young woman as she is navigating life, it's important that she knows the reality of the consequences that she is going to make. So if you are a single woman in your 20s, 30s, whatever, if you are a younger single woman and you're thinking, oh, am I too young for marriage? I don't know that I necessarily believe that. I think if you've grown up in a situation where you saw two adults know how to, love each other, or you even desire to be married and you desire to do better, you're not too young in your 20s to get married. In some instances, if you do decide to get married earlier, that can maybe save you from certain things. That can maybe save you from certain financial challenges. You start building earlier, so maybe you had wealth a little earlier. So of course there's certain benefits to marrying younger. Also, that means you're maybe not going to have as many freedoms, right? Maybe you're not going to be able to travel as much with your friends if you get pregnant or things like that. So like I said, there's a give or take, but I don't think it's safe to say that, oh, just because you're young, you can't get married. Because I've heard that sometimes, oh, I'm too young to get married, I got to focus on my career. That's not always the case. If you decide, hey, I'm not interested in marriage, I'm not interested in a long-term relationship, I just want to focus on my career and me as a woman, I'm going to try to make as much money as possible. And then when I get married, I'm going to settle down. You also have to now know the consequences associated with that. Now, if you're entering the marriage or dating relationship market in your 30s and 40s, men are looking at you differently. This doesn't mean that you as a person don't have value, but the way men are looking at you as far as as a romantic partner is something that they are sexually attracted to, your value as a 30 or 40-year-old, 50-year-old even, is going to be different than when you were younger. And that's just the laws of nature. So if you're thinking that you're going to be able to demand top dollar, right, as you would when you were younger, right, and you were less experienced, you were right and tight, it just doesn't work like that. And of course, there's going to be other challenges associated with that. If you want to have children, not to say you can't, but at a certain age, it may be a little bit harder, or maybe you don't. If maybe you don't want to at a certain age. Financially, if you are a part of that small percentage who decide that you are able to make money, now you're likely going to want a man who makes more. So I don't think there is a situation that exists where it's going to be just all easy. There's going to be upsides and there's going to be downsides. But I think especially for women, you have to know that as a single woman in particular, it is harder to build wealth. It is harder to gain financially as a single woman, especially when children come into play and you're by yourself. If you don't believe me, just look at the numbers. This is not my opinion or what I predict is going to happen, just based upon what we see as far as how single mothers are able to move forward financially versus how single women versus how married women, strictly from a financial perspective, tend to be in a more just in a safer environment financially at the very least. So that's what we discussed. And like I said, in an era where there's a lot of women saying that they don't need a man or that they would rather push off marriage, but they're so open to having children outside of marriage, you have to know that that is going to put you in one of the most financially vulnerable situations ever. And if you are willing to do that, okay. But like I said, that is a real reality. That is going to impede your ability as a single woman to actually level up. But those are just my thoughts, y'all. Those are just my thoughts. So I do appreciate you hanging out with me today. I appreciate you being here. Also, special shout out to Percy again for the $5 super chat. This was fun. And definitely stay tuned for other content and other interviews that I have coming up. This was fun. So yeah, without further ado, I'm going to sign out and we'll talk later. Bye.